I'm delighted today. We're going to talk to two of the foremost experts in building and insulation in the country. Jenny Edwards, who is the founder and a building scientist from Lighthouse Architecture and Building Science, and Felicia Richardson, who is the CEO of Enviroflex, which is a leading insulation installer company in Melbourne. Today, we're talking about the new roadmap for insulation installation in Australia, which has been led by the insulation industry, the building sector, and the energy efficiency sector, who've come together to develop a plan for how to make sure that we can ensure that buildings are the insulation in them is installed with quality control processes and also safely. So without further ado, I'm going to pass first on to Jenny, who's going to talk about why is insulation important in buildings and why does it need to be installed correctly?
I'm so glad you asked. Insulation is one of my favourite things. It's not particularly sexy because you can't see it, but in terms of energy efficiency in houses, your building envelope is the most important part, and the insulation that you put into the ceilings and the walls and the floor make a massive difference to the amount of energy you consume to heat and cool your home and your comfort and health. So insulation is critical. It can reduce your energy consumption by 50 to 75%. You know, a lot of older homes actually have very little insulation. So the impact for those sort of homes of retrofitting insulation is massive. Fortunately, our standards for new homes are quite good. But it's not just having the insulation there that's important, it's the quality of the install. Sadly, as a building scientist visiting a lot of existing homes and quite new homes, I'll frequently find big gaps particularly in the ceiling insulation. And it only takes 5% gaps in R5 ceiling insulation to reduce its effective R value, so its ability to stop the transfer of heat, by half. So you might pay for R5 bats, but if they've got gaps in them, equating to 5%, you're actually only getting 2.5. So having it and installing it really well without gaps is critical to the energy efficiency and the performance of your home.
Wow, that's quite a shocking statistic, Jenny. No matter how many times I hear that, my mind is still blown. We'll talk about to somebody who actually is involved in installing insulation and making sure it's done correctly. Felicia, just be great to hear from you. You're one of the leading insulation installers in the country in terms of your quality control processes for quite some time. How do you make sure that the many people you employ, either as permanent staff or as part-time contractors, do a good job?
Oh, look, Rob, it was really interesting to me. I came from a different industry about 3 years ago, and what I saw was a industry that was very poorly regulated. The manufacturers were very well regulated, but the installer base was very poorly regulated. And what we sought to do was to actually create some standards, that which I would like to see in my home. And, you know, Jenny was exactly on the money. You know, you talk about a poor installation job, the impact is huge in terms of the wastage that you have. So what we sought to do was to train people. Now, there's no point in training people if you're installing a casual workbase or a workbase that is paid, you know, piece rate, which typically is what happens in the insulation industry. So what we did immediately was we switched our team over to permanent employees. We then had them undertake insulation courses. It was actually about investing in your people. We also organised, we specialise in retrofit. So I thought, well, what do I want when someone comes to my home? You know, typically you go into someone's home, often it's the woman there with her children. So we sought to have working with children checks, so that the people coming into your home, you know that they've been vetted in some way. We have them registered with the Clean Energy Council. It's a quality install where you will save in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Felicia. So we've just worked with a very broad range of industry bodies to develop a roadmap for ensuring that insulation is delivered with quality control and safety. And so some of the key elements in there really sort of talk to both of the elements you've talked about. So the first part is a series of actions that are about information and guidance. The second form is training and accreditation. And one of the really key things we found out very quickly, working with a range of professional organizations around the country, is that there isn't just one type of installer. You need a basic level of training for people who are sort of coming onto the job for the first time to make sure that they know what they're doing. But you also need to recognize some system of recognizing those people who've been in the industry 2, 3, maybe 5+ years, who really know what they're doing, because they are needed to oversee that work and make sure that it's done with quality. However, what we also found is it's not enough just to have training and accreditation. You also need to have a driver for people to take up training. And one thing we noticed around the world is that governments use their ability as the owner of public housing upgrades, or when they support insulation upgrades in private housing sector, making sure that they require that it's done with quality control, that people are trained to the appropriate standard. And then the final quality control measure was basically making sure we already have a system for new builds, construction upgrades, making sure that that's really taking the best that we can in terms of quality control. The final thing is saying that insulation installation is fantastic, but we do need to go beyond that. We need to think about how insulation install is linked up to air tightness, to ventilation, and to a full range of elements of the thermal envelope. So there's a full plan. I'm not going to go through it all now, but that's available on the website. But what I wanted to quickly talk to you about, Jenny and Felicia, is what do you think are some of the most important elements of making sure that insulation is installed with quality and safety in Australia?
Well, I totally agree with the training element. You know, I've been in this industry checking houses for 12 years or so. I've seen those young people who aren't well trained, don't have the background in it, but I've also seen some top-notch installers, like you mentioned, who we really need to acknowledge and we need to hang on to mentor the younger people. So it's very exciting for me to see this training being talked about in the roadmap. It's the main thing for me.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Felicia?
Do a variety of different installations. So what we've done though is we've created a path for people so that it's a career for them now. So instead of, like Jenny was talking about, where people would typically come in and it was a little bit of a road to nowhere kind of thing as an installer, you know, we've actually created a pathway where these guys can go from being young bad installers and work their way up the skill line and up the pay line as well. So create a career out of it. Fantastic enterprise to be involved with this, because what we're seeking to do is to take an industry that really hasn't been well understood and to elevate it and to an element of professionalism that you would see with other recognized trades. And I find that really exciting, because at the end of the day, the winners are the consumers and our country in terms of us heading towards reduced emissions, and individuals with reduced power bills. And I find that really exciting.
Rob, there's just one point I wanted to make in terms of building science and the importance of your building envelope. The key thing that people should be tying in with their insulation is draft sealing. So reducing the air leakage in your home combined with insulation will get you enormous improvements in thermal performance and comfort. So do those two things together. So insulation and air leakage together give you enormous thermal bang for buck.
So look, I really want to thank both of you for your time. The report is now available on the website. I would like to say that the report wouldn't have been possible without a pre-report that was funded by the Government of New South Wales, the Government of Victoria, ICANS and Insulation Australasia, who together funded this work that really helped us to understand exactly what Felicia was saying there. How do we create a really professional insulation industry and the range of tools that are required to support that, and the range of skills for other people who are required to support that as well. So that report is now available on our website and the website of our partners and signatories of this roadmap. And we really look forward to implementing it over the next few years. So thank you both for your time.